Draft season, of course, comes in conjunction with free agent offseason, Bo, and we've been talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. We've been talking about the draft. That's the cake, but the icing very much is, okay, what's going to happen in free agency with this team? And you came up with an idea. Well, let's you and I pick one player, and I'm going to say let's do it on each side of the ball. Today's defense, maybe tomorrow is offense. One free agent target that we feel like makes a lot of sense for the Cardinals to pursue, given the, let's call it, the issues on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, as I mentioned, when you talk about team building and the needs that the team has across the roster, you have to rebuild a front seven, right?
Yeah.
And this is a pass rush that couldn't generate any sacks down the stretch. They had one over the last 6 games, and that was a play where Justin Fields ran out of bounds. So it was kind of a token sack. So really didn't get anything going as far as the final stretch of the season. And, looking at it, we'd seen some really big names that are going to hit potentially the free agent market this offseason, whether it's a Chase Young, who else were some of the free agent edge rushers? We had a couple in there on the defensive side of the football. Let's see the top 10 free agents right there. We've got Danielle Hunter at the edge. You got a Josh Allen with Jacksonville, see what they do. Brian Burns from Carolina. But I saw a guy that stood out to me today that has had a career year, and he's going to hit the free agent market this season. I might see him as early as the wild card weekend in the playoffs. We'll see if he's available for the Houston Texans. And it's Jonathan Grenard, 26-year-old edge. He had a career high with 12.5 sacks, 15 TFLs, and combined 52 tackles. Where did he go to college, Johnny?
I don't know. Tell me.
Louisville. Alma mater of one Jonathan.
ACC defender.
Little ACC defender, but look, he's proven himself at the NFL. I think Jonathan Grenard is not going to command as much maybe hype and maybe not as big of a contract as some of these other edge rushers, and I think he would be a great guy to immediately add to the pass rush rotation in 2024 for the Cardinals.
I think that's a great suggestion, one that makes a lot of sense. They are so deprived, the Cardinals, in their front seven. Their sacks, we've issued it. I've got a Johnny on the spot coming out this week pertaining to how dismal their sack production is, and they need to make a splash in free agency. Like, I know corner is going to be an issue and a priority for them, but I don't know if they're going to dabble with like a Jalen Johnson. How effective is Jalen Johnson without Montez Sweat? You tell me. Like, and he's good, but the Bears defense didn't look quite right until they got Montez Sweat. It starts up front with your pass rush. And I would have no issue with that. The Houston's defense, I thought was pretty solid. He and Will Anderson Jr., but like they didn't light the world on fire, but I like only 26 years old. That's key. You feel like you're getting an ascending player. The peak years, 26, 27, 28, he'd be under contract. It really is just going to come down to how much money is he going to warrant? I mean, is Houston paying anybody too? Like, they got CJ Stroud making no money. Can they afford to let him go? I haven't heard a lot of traction about him, but I would say that that's probably unrealistic just because of Houston's cap situation. They're not paying anybody outside of Laramie Tunsil on that team. Nico Collins makes no money. Tank Dell. But may I give you an alternative of somebody who's set to hit the open market, was supposed to get signed to a contract, didn't get signed to a contract, and Miami, they've got to pay a bunch of other people, including their franchise quarterback. Christian Wilkins is my target, my top target on the defensive line. Depending on where you look, he either had 9 or 10 sacks this year. He has been their most consistent player, even with guys like Bradley Chubb going down. They're signing street free agents today. Justin Houston to play outside linebacker for them. He's older. He's 28, right? He went to the University of Miami, was a first rounder the same year Kyler Murray came out. So you'd have to be comfortable getting, 2 to 3 good years, and then he'd probably fall off after 30 years old. I think the situation is so dire at defensive line, you have to overspend on a player like this. I don't think Miami can, even without their state tax, wants to match what you'd be willing to max. They had an opportunity again to sign him this offseason. They didn't. And he has been fantastic for Vic Fangio. Who's a Vic Fangio disciple in a lot of ways? Jonathan Gannon. I think it would be an easy plug and play into Gannon's system that highlights defensive lineman play. Put him next to Dante Stills. Again, people are going to scoff at the age. That's what happens when you can't get a Jalen Carter because of off the field concerns, and there's nobody in this draft that warrants a top 10 to 15 selection at that position. You have to go out and splurge. You got to spend a little bit more than you'd want to be comfortable spending on a player that's almost 30 years old. So to me, that he makes all the sense in the world. He's been healthy for the most part. He's been consistent. Last year, he was fantastic. This year, you've got the sacks that come home. So I'm with you. It has to be a front seven player over a cornerback. I like Jalen Johnson, but somebody that can generate pressure up front for this team. They don't have it. They need it.
Where did he go to college?
University of Miami.
No.
Where'd he go?
I mean, that also would be
he went to Clemson.
Yeah. Which resides in which conference?
They were basically an SEC team during those Deshaun Watson years. We've discussed that. He went to Clemson. He was elite there. They won the national championship. They were an outlier, like Florida State's an ACC outlier this year.
It's unbelievable how you justify your pick versus mine. There's
yours
no
is
way.
Fine. I like yours fine.
Yours is fine. 12.5 sacks, 15 TFLs. Yeah, it's fine. It wouldn't make an impact on
your guy's like you. He strikes me as like just like another Marcus Golden. Like gets home, gets a sack. Christian to me is like you feel his presence every play.
Look, I mean, they need to add. How many defensive linemen do they have to add?
4 between the draft and free agency.
Yeah.
Like 4 people, 4 legitimate starters.
Yeah, Mike saying Sweat from Texas, round 2 or 3. That plus supplement it with some free agents. That'd be great.
You need that, but you can't be in a position where you're taking guys in the second and third round. They're like, hey, can you just start for us? Hey, it's rookie minicamp. Do you think you guys could be starters from now until next January? No, bro. You got to get like Dante Stills was never going to be a starter for this team. Now it worked out, but like. You just have to assume the rookies are going to have a learning curve unless they're Marvin or somebody like that, where it's like plug and play franchise game changer. You got to have a grace period with these rookies.
I think that though, 28 is a little long in the tooth for this organization and where they are in the rebuild.
I agree with that.
When if they're going to throw free agent dollars at somebody, because they are primarily going to be a draft and develop team, like they have to be somebody that's going to make just a massive impact.
I just feel like though, if your timeline is we think we can scratch and claw to be a fringe playoff team next year, and then the following year you're cooking with gas, those are the 2 peak years you're going to be paying this guy. Front load his contract, you're not paying anybody. Get him to be the baton to somebody that you draft. Help him have an imprint. If he's the kind of, I don't know what kind of guy he is. He's a captain, and if he gels with Austin Ford and JG. Help him be a Kazir White to be a glue guy with some of these other players on your roster. Like the San Francisco 49ers, I think we'd all agree, are in win now mode. They're trying to win a Super Bowl today, right? They got Brock Purdy on a rookie deal. Javon Hargraves was 30-31 when they signed him because they had missed on Solomon Thomas. They had let DeForest Buckner go. I'm sorry. Competent NFL franchises do not allow mid-20 defensive linemen, defensive tackles to hit free agency. It does not happen.
Yeah, but they needed somebody like they're in a way different position front seven wise. They already had
I get
Nick
that.
Bosa, and they had impact players already.
But if you don't do this, what do you do? What is there to do? You want to sign another LJ Collier kind of group in July? How'd that work out for you?
You have to be way more aggressive, no doubt about it. And there were things that Monty Ossenfort couldn't, put all his attention to because the state of the roster was such a mess, the one that he inherited, that he had to clean house and really kind of shore up the salary cap going into this offseason. And he did that. And, a lot of the position groups, man, did they pay for it dearly by being undermanned. And if you couldn't find a group in the NFL, like Jonathan Gannon said in his exit interview press conference yesterday, he's never seen anything like this defensive line his entire career. And he's seen a lot of football, even though he just turned 41 yesterday. Bad on our part for not wishing the head coach a happy birthday yesterday, by the way. Defensive line, edge rusher, I think that's exactly where the Arizona Cardinals absolutely have to go.